police have no duty to protect and serve, and they can legally kill you. Hi, I'm Congressional candidate Joe Kopsick of Illinois, and we are facing a police brutality emergency right now in America. If you care anything about Black lives or George Floyd and protecting people from police violence, I want you to listen very closely. This is absolutely true what I'm about to tell you. I have a major in political science from University of Wisconsin, and I would not lie about this. I'm here to tell you about two important cases in policing that you've probably never heard of, and that is Bad Elk versus United States, 1900, and Warren versus DC, 1981. We're going to start with Warren versus DC. But just a note, this might be my first and last day on TikTok, so if you care about police brutality and care about electing caring independent candidates, and you know someone in Illinois or Chicago who may be targeted by police violence, help me make this video go viral. This is very important. This is life-saving information if you want to protect people from the police. So the first case I want to talk about is Warren versus DC. That was Warren versus District of Columbia, 1981. The Supreme Court ruled that the police have no duty to protect and serve the general public outside of a private contract with the specific party to be served. Now I'm going to unwrap exactly what that means. Basically, a woman was raped and tortured and held at gunpoint along with a relative of hers in her apartment in Washington, D.C. in the late 70s, and the police tried to get in and then they just gave up, and then the next time they were called, they didn't come. So the courts ruled that they couldn't be held responsible. And if you want to know more about this, you can look up the 11th Amendment and sovereign immunity and cases related to it. And it's very valuable to know. Just to summarize what sovereign immunity is, you can't sue a department of government, probably like unless you're another department of government or a state or something. As an individual, you can only sue government employees who you allege actually harmed your rights and deprived you of rights, violated your rights. So you can hold individual police officers responsible for police brutality, but of course, as we know, they were very rarely punished, even if they kill people. So a lot of you out there are probably thinking, if you're still watching, I hope this is in edutainment, they're probably thinking, geez, it's almost like police can just kill people legally. Well, I'm going to tell you that that's exactly true in 36 states. Yeah. So bear with me. Warren versus DC. Yeah, they don't have any responsibility to protect and serve the general public. They serve private people they have private contracts with, which means basically they protect private property. Now, isn't it weird that the public police are protecting private property, yet I, who am a private security guard, am told in my training videos that I protect the people, aka the public? Shouldn't private security guards be protecting property and the public police be protecting the people? Why does everything have to be the opposite of what makes sense in this country? So that is at the root of what's the problem with the policing in this country. It's legal to kill people and the cops can't be held responsible for their crimes. So I've covered Warren versus DC. The other important case is John Bad Elk versus the US, 1899-1900. This is in South Dakota. A Native American man named John Bad Elk was arrested by a Native American police officer. I don't know if it was a reservation officer or what, but his name was John Killsback. Now here's a mnemonic device to remember who's who in this. It can be confusing. It's almost like, it's the opposite of what you expect. It's just like America. John kills back. It sounds like the guy who shot back at the officer. No, John Killsback was the name of the officer. John Bad Elk, which is kind of like bad egg. You think, bad apple, like a cop. No, it's the opposite. John Bad Elk was the citizen. John Killsback was the officer. So now that we got that straight, here's what happened. The Native American officer said to the Native American civilian, "You're under arrest. Come with me right now. I'm taking you downtown." And the civilian said, "I'm within my rights to be here right now. I have a court appointment tomorrow morning. Leave me alone till then. Let me go, and I will be at that court appearance in the morning, officer." And the cop tried to shoot him. He pulled out his gun, and the guy defended himself. And it went through the courts. It went to federal court. And in 1900, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled, I think it was unanimously, actually, pretty sure, that he was within his rights to defend himself against that police officer. So, where does that leave us? 120 years later, after someone told me about that case in college and said, no one's ever heard of this case. It doesn't matter. Well, there's only 14 states that are still respecting that case. and thus still respecting your right to defend yourself against the police if they kill you during an unlawful arrest. That's what this is about. I'm not fighting for your right to murder the police, without them actually trying to kill you first during an unlawful arrest.
Damn.
They don't have a right to kill you. Like they have to either arrest you or they have to tell you what you're accused of. The 4th through 7th Amendment stuff. 4th through 8th Amendment pertains to court and arrest and trial and all that stuff. You gotta know it being American. So here are the 14 states, and I'm sure you kind of know this, literally. Sorry for the joke, it's a very serious situation. The left one. Illinois and DC and 35 states have made it illegal to resist unlawful arrest, that is, resist it with physical force. And the cops are always going to call your defense force. But what they do is force because it's enforcement. So the black states are the states where you can legally defend yourself against the police. And fortunately, those are the states where most of the black people in the country live. But it's not where all they, so there's black people in the gray states and there's non-black people in all the states that need to be protected by the police too, of course. But yeah, if you live in one of these gray states, including Illinois, where I live and I'm campaigning for the 10th District U.S. Representative, it is not legal to defend yourself against the police, even if they're trying to kill you, even if they don't have a warrant. That is what's actually happening in this country, and that is insane. So I'm, as part of my campaign, I'm on a mission to urge these governors, 36 state governors, most importantly, J.B. Pritzker of Illinois and the governor of New York. Well, actually, governor of New York, you can resist police in New York, but not in Illinois. Illinois has Chicago. New Jersey is also one. So Illinois and New Jersey are really the most important states to get the governor to realize that John Bad Elk is worth protecting. The right to defend yourself against the cops trying to kill you during an unlawful arrest when they have no warrant and probably haven't even told you what you're being suspected of. So yeah, learn about that case, John Bad Elk v. U.S. and Warren versus D.C. They're not going to tell you this stuff. In law school, they'll teach you 7th Amendment, 11th Amendment, Terry stop, Terry versus Ohio. Like that's the, Terry versus Ohio is the important law or case about arrest. But they're never going to tell you about Warren versus DC, that the cops don't protect. They don't protect and serve the public. It says serve and protect right on the back of the police vehicles. That's their motto. And they don't do it because they're basically a private mafia. They're just a private security company that is the government is their biggest client. You can research the Pinkertons if you want to hear the history of kind of policing and private security overlap. And also Pinkertons, I think, they were founded to bust unions. So the police don't just exist because of slave patrols. They also exist because in the 1900s, they were hired to bust unions and keep workers in line. So we're on a mission in my campaign to urge these governors, J.B. Pritzker, Phil Murphy, Gavin Newsom, Greg Abbott, Ron DeSantis, Mike DeWine, and D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser to start honoring Bad Elk versus United States and remove legal prohibitions against using force to defend your life when the cops trying to kill you during an unlawful arrest. And I choose these governors out of those 36 because they are the states where you can't defend yourself from police but have the highest black populations. So people want to know about the top threats to black people from police. I think I've explained that fairly. And I also just want to talk about this. I haven't updated this poster, so there could be a few more people. And but at least 9 Americans have been killed by police since George Floyd's murder as of about 2 weeks ago. And we should say their names. Let's do it right now. Sean Monterosa, Jorge Gomez, David McAtee, Manuel Ellis, Sarah Grossman, Eric Salgado, Rayshard Brooks, Tony McDade, and Jeffrey McClure. This is old too, not needs to be updated. At least 6 Americans of color were lynched.
Damn.
In the weeks following George Floyd's murder. People are calling it killing.
That's fucked.
Death.
No.
He was murdered. These are the people who were lynched or suspected of being lynched. Otis T.T. Gully, Dominique Alexander, Alex Villanueva, Robert Fuller, who the police just concluded that it was a suicide, even though the family said he wasn't suicidal. Doesn't make sense. Malcolm Harsh, an Oluwatoyin Salau, who was killed after she was raped, and I think threatened to reveal who the rapist was. She was trying to do something about it. But yeah, no, I mean, cops usually show up and kill the person who made the call. You know, people don't realize how often that happens. And also, I found out recently that about half of the victims of police violence are autistic, so they break eye contact with people all the time, and cops view that as a sign of disobedience. They need a whole lot more sensitivity training. People are just, especially black people, are just aghast at the idea that you need more hours of training to be a barber than you need to be a cop. In a lot of states, I don't know which states there are. I know it's not a lie though. But here's the real reason. I'm going to tell you why they don't want black people to be barbers. Well, first, they don't want to make money and have their own businesses and be successful and be part of the American dream and free enterprise. They don't want them to have scissors. Like, they don't want, a higher percentage. So a higher percentage of blacks than whites, obviously, as we know from the statistics, have criminal records and violent criminal records. It's not a stereotype, it's just a fact. No racism here intended. But yeah, people with violent criminal histories who might have access to scissors, America is just completely suspicious of that they might use scissors to kill people, like just, I don't know, randomly in a barber shop someday. Come on, if you take a look at Norway's prison systems, they let serial killers have access to butcher knives. You know why? Because they need to feed themselves. If you don't let them have a knife to feed themselves and cut their own meat, then what? You just bring serial killers food every day and they don't have to do any work even to support themselves or be independent? So, people are always talking about private prisons, what should we do to reform prisons? It's like, maybe we should make prisoners actually be independent, or they have to depend on themselves instead of catering to them. And maybe they shouldn't work to provide restitution and compensation to the public, which arguably doesn't exist because it can't take the witness stand, can't confront his accuser. It's not a person. So not every criminal has actually harmed every member of the public. So maybe they should provide restitution to the people they harmed, like their direct victims, the people who filed the police charges. So there's plenty of things we can do. I support more body cams. How come anyone hasn't suggested, like, maybe the body cam shouldn't just face the perp, aka, keep in mind we're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty in this country. They're not perpetrators unless they've been proven guilty in a court of law, yet they'll call people perpetrators, or they're criminal suspects is what they are, in truth. So body cams should be facing the police as well as away from the police, in case the cop does something wrong. How many times have you seen the cop puts the dash cam on and flips the hood up so you can't see what's going on?
Yep.
We need a whole lot more transparency. Everyone knows it. But I hope I've informed you about these very important cases today, because I think a lot of people haven't heard of it. The idea that the cops can just get away with their crime because they didn't have a contract to specifically serve you in particular, when it says on their vehicle, serve and protect, and that they can just kill you during an unlawful arrest, and they have no warrant. This is very serious. I would not make this up. You can find out about these cases on Wikipedia. It's all over the place, like Cornell.law or whatever it's called. Here's something you're going to want to know if you want to support the right choice for president, i.e. a person who's not going to support the police killing black people for no reason. The 1994 Clinton Omnibus Crime Bill, aka the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act of 1994. People want to use this as evidence that, Joe Biden put 1 million, 2 million black people in prison for nonviolent crimes. And yeah, it's an exaggeration. It's not exactly true. Here's how to criticize the Clinton Omnibus Bill and Biden who wrote it without making any mistakes in the facts. These are the facts, and these are very important. That bill increased the number of street cops in America by 100,000. It subsidized states to build more prisons, and it contributed to an increase in incarceration which disproportionately affected black people. It also gave tanks, military equipment, to local police departments, and it increased some drug penalties, and it banned 19 automatic weapons. Now, you might not like weapons, but just keep in mind, black people have to defend themselves against gangs. Sometimes they're pushed to join gangs to defend themselves against other gangs. Like, if we learn to tolerate small-time gun possession and marijuana possession, other non-harmful, non-toxic drugs, not extremely toxic ones like, what's that opiate? I can't remember. I'm sorry. Anyway, things like marijuana, cocaine, prostitution, tax evasion. These are victimless crimes, arguably. And if people are going to say black people need to be in their homes, I hate these single fathers, black people who abandon their families, they need to be back in their homes. It's like, well, why don't you stop putting them in jail for having a little weed and a gun? Unless they do something wrong and shoot someone with it who didn't deserve it because they weren't messing with them first. So we need to have a culture where we are talking about repealing victimless crime laws, like against tax evasion, prostitution, small-time guns, and drugs. Or we're not going to be able to help black people re-enter their communities, re-enter their families, teach their kids about their ancestors and their heritage, and form businesses where they can, pay off their debt to society. And it's like they've already paid off their debt to society. Everyone's talking about George Floyd and how he held the gun to the head of a pregnant woman. I never looked up whether that was true, but if it is true, it was years ago, and I think he already went to prison for it. He served his time. He was a regular citizen at that point. He was an ex-offender, but so what? He served his time. And he got accused of using a $20 counterfeit bill, which, by the way, the police or somebody is probably filling minority communities with to frame them for crimes. You might think that's crazy, but a few years ago, Norfolk Southern, the trucking company, was caught collaborating with the Chicago Police Department to leave trucks open full of brand new sneakers to try to lure black people, probably teens and poor black people, to try to loot and steal a sneaker so they can catch them and put
It's
them in
entrapment.
jail. It is so entrapment is actually when the police directly tell you to do something is illegal and you know it. But this is you got to be careful about that. I mean, it was probably illegal what the police did, but that's it. They write the laws to make sure that they can legally kill you and hunt you and trap you. What do you think's going on with ICE at the border? They're trapping human beings. All of America is a human being hunting and trapping. It's basically the Pest, starring what's his name? I can't even remember. John Leguizamo, The Pest, where the rich guy's like, "Hey, let me hunt you for a day, and if you survive, I'll pay you, or you'll lose and I'll kill you." I think that's the plot of the movie. It's not far off from we say the Constitution is the foundation of America. Nope, it's a big hunt. It's a big fox hunt. Go take a look at the paintings hanging around your average racist golf course, and you'll see how much of a Nazi fox hunt this really is. They want to put you in jail. It's like the System of a Down song says, they're trying to build a prison. So just to wrap up about what Biden did to this country and how he shouldn't be elected. By the way, Trump is a racist pedophile who gasses black people. Biden is a racist pedophile who gasses black people. There's other people running. I'll tell you about that in another video. So, Joe Biden wrote the Clinton crime bill. Bill Clinton signed it into law. Fuck them. But you know what? You know who else voted for that law? Bernie Sanders. After criticizing the hell out of it. He knew it was a bad law, but he voted for it because he got a law passed as part of it, which was what he wrote, which was the Violence Against Women Act. And I'm sure you're probably thinking, how could you support violence against women? Well, what the Violence Against Women Act did is it provided federal funding for the prosecution of domestic abusers. After they had taken away guns from the average person, taken away 19 automatic weapons, if a woman's being beaten by her husband, I have no problem with her using a gun. Maybe she won't shoot him, maybe just scare him away. But you're going to take away this woman's guns in the same bill that you provide money to prosecute her abusers? You're just causing one problem and solving another. It's like it's causing two problems really. It's just you open these women up to being abused, and then they have to deal with a horrible court fallout from that for years after. Why not just let people defend themselves, for God's sake? So I don't think the Violence Against Women Act helps protect women. It's like the Patriot Act or any other, the roadless rules, whatever. There's plenty of laws that have deceptive names. And
what's that?
This isn't one of them, but the roadless rule is the one that allows people to build roads in roadless areas, but it makes it sound like they're protecting areas that are already roadless, and they're going to keep it that way. It's environmental bullshit. So Bernie Sanders was a hypocrite because he knew he was voting for a bad law, but he said, "I got my rider attached, it's fine." And women applauded him. But you know what? He actually threw black people under the bus when he flipped his vote. He said, "I hate to invoke the name Nicole Brown Simpson, but women are the target of domestic abuse and we need to provide federal funds to prosecute their abusers." He was basically saying, you know how O.J. Simpson just killed his white wife? You should be very afraid of black people. That's who Bernie Sanders is. I'm very sorry to say that. Again, Trump's a horrible Nazi racist. That doesn't make it okay for Bernie Sanders to be one too. You ever take a look at his military record? How many invasions of Middle East and African countries he supported? Like, I'm not trying to say he's a racist, but look at his record. Like, what the hell? Go deep in it. Like, I don't know, Uganda and I don't even know. Like, I think 12 countries. So follow me and I will verify this information for you. I have a blog. So Hillary Clinton, you might remember her using the word super predators to describe, you know, young black people who are, you know, super criminals and shouldn't be subject to the same ordinary laws, you know, like the civil liberties we value so dear as Americans. So I support repealing that 1994 crime bill, because then we get our weapons back, we get our drugs back, the cops won't have tanks anymore, black people will get killed disproportionately to whites, a little less probably. The states won't be being paid by the federal government to build more prisons anymore, and there'll be less beat cops on the street. That's what getting rid of the horrible 1994 Clinton omnibus crime bill would do. And if you elect Joe Biden, that you'll see, like, this plus Patriot Act. I think Joe Biden had a big role in the Patriot Act too. You will see horrible totalitarian nonsense like we've gotten used to over the last 3 years with Trump. There's really no difference between the people. They're huge crime control advocates. Donald Trump took out an ad in the New York Times about how the Central Park Five that allegedly raped a woman, but like there was no evidence for it. Like, they're both horrible monsters and racist rapists. So please look into your independent and third party presidential candidates. Joe Jorgensen of the Libertarian Party, Howie Hawkins of the Green Party, Gloria La Riva of the Socialist Party, Party for Socialism and Liberation, Constitution Party and Prohibition Party, and they're all running people. They might not be able to, you know, have voter access in your state, but you need to look it up. And the 12th Amendment allows a third party to win the presidency. I don't know if you knew that. It is possible for the third party to win the presidency. You just have to vote for that guy or woman or whoever in enough states where the electoral votes combine to 270 or more, thus depriving Biden and Trump of the votes they would need, of the 270 electoral votes, to become president. That's how you do it. There's a process for it. It's in the 12th Amendment and it's outlined. And we can change it anytime, by the way, through the amendment process in the Constitution. So you might be a little pissed off that I'm mentioning the Constitution so much. I don't know if I did. But yeah, it's the framework that we edit the governmental relationship with the people in, that the federal and state relationship is edited and modified. I support amending the Constitution. I support amending it in very radical ways. Policing is not really the purview of the federal government, and that's why it might be, the case might be that local and state reform is more effective in the long term. If you try to get federal police reform, it might be effective in the short term, but it'll probably be constitutionally challenged at some point. And I'm on a mission to have voter education and voter information and teach people how their government is supposed to work. And if we treat it the way it's supposed to work, maybe it'll actually start working again. That's my theory. And I'm also saying that we can't teach our kids in school how the government works if it doesn't even work anymore or doesn't work the way it's intended to. So please follow me onto different platforms if I get deplatformed by TikTok and get kicked off. But I am on YouTube, Joe Kopsick, #4, Congress. Also my friend's channel, Felipe Vasquez Bustamante, has about 40 of my videos at this point. I'm also on Blogspot, agrarian.blogspot.com. And I'm on Instagram at Joe Kopsick. Facebook is Joe Kopsick, and Joe Kopsick for Congress, (IL-10, Illinois 10th District, and the Mutualist Party of Illinois. I'm forming my own party as part of an independent run for Congress. I might be on the ballot if I get enough signatures as a mutualist, or if I don't, I'll be a write-in independent. So follow my campaign, help spread this information. Black people are in danger. The cops can legally kill you in 14 states. This is not a joke. I would not lie to you about this. I found out about this 10, 12 years ago. John Bad Elk versus United States, 1899/1900. South Dakota to the federal government. Unanimously ruled you have a right to defend yourself against the police if they try to kill you during an unlawful arrest. This information could save lives, and I need your help spreading information about the Joe Kopsick for Congress campaign, spreading the e-petitions. We have about 10 days to get me on the ballot. Even if I don't, I will stay on the ballot as a write-in independent candidate. You just have to learn how to spell my name. Kopsick, because I am sick of cops, and you should be too. Thanks for watching.